Songhai Empire. The Songhai Empire, also known as Songhai, 1460, circa 1591, succeeded the Mali Empire, 1240 to 1645, as West Africa's most powerful empire, covering modern southern Mauritania and Mali. The Songhai began as a tiny kingdom near the eastern bend of the Niger River around 1000, but under King Sunni Ali's reign, they would drastically extend their area, 1464 to 1492. The Songhai Empire thrived during the 16th century, with its capital at Gao and dominance of trans-Saharan commerce through cities like Timbuktu and Djenne, until it was invaded and incorporated by the Moroccan Empire circa 1591, ravaged by civil conflicts. Since the mid-13th century, the Mali Empire had flourished via its control of local and international trade, particularly in gold and salt, along the savanna strip between the Sahara Desert to the north and the woodlands of southern West Africa, commonly referred to as the Sudan area. Civil conflicts, the opening up of rival trade routes abroad, and invasions by the nomadic Tuareg of the southern Sahara and eventually the Mossi people, who ruled the territories south of the Niger River, all contributed to the empire's demise in the 1460s. Worse was to come, as the Songhai Empire rose to dominance, an ancient nation that was now more strong than ever. Until the arrival of the Moroccans in the 17th century, the Mali Empire would cling to the western corner of its formerly enormous territory. Songhai was a kingdom that existed in the 9th century and was contemporaneous with the Ghana Empire, 6th-13th century, to the east. The Songhai, aka Songhai, a tribe of Nilo-Saharan-speaking peoples, ruled the region and gave it their name. The Songhai tribe, while being subjugated by the Mali Empire, would prove difficult and strong because they controlled river transportation on the Niger. From the early 15th century, the Songhai monarchs conducted repeated attacks on Mali urban centers, eventually gaining independence when the Mali kings lost control of numerous minor conquered countries on the outside of their empire. Around 1468, King Sunni Ali, also known as Sunni Ali Br, switched from the Songhai's customary approach of short, occasional attacks on their opponents to a more prolonged campaign of permanent territorial conquest. Sunni Ali was able to capture the remnant of the ancient Mali Empire with an army armed with armored cavalry and the only naval fleet in North Africa, which he stationed on the Niger River. King Songhai claimed to be a magician of the local animist faith in order to terrify his opponents. He was also able to mix sensitivity and corrosion. Sunni Ali's fighting technique, which included attacking the opponent with crushing power and speed, was even more successful than these. The occupied lands were divided into provinces and controlled by a governor appointed by the monarch. Tribute was paid to local leaders, captives were abducted, and political alliance weddings were organized. By 1469, the Songhai had taken control of Timbuktu, an important commercial port on the Niger River. The Mossi lands south of the Niger River bend were invaded in 1471, and Djenne, another significant trading center in the region, was captured in 1473. Unfortunately for Sunni Ali, all of this additional land did not provide him access to the gold fields of West Africa's southern coast, which had made both Ghana and Mali prosperous. This was due to the fact that in 1471, a Portuguese ship headed by Lisbon merchant Feno Gomes traveled across Africa's Atlantic coast and established a commercial foothold in these gold fields, in modern Ghana. With the development of the Mediterranean Sea route, trans-Saharan camel caravans would face stiff competition as the best means to transport commercial products between North Africa and Europe. However, the Portuguese were not as successful in utilizing Africa's riches as they had planned. In any event, the Songhai monopolized the Saharan caravan trade, which carried rock salt and luxury items like as fine fabric, glassware, sugar, and horses to Sudan in return for gold, ivory, spices, cola nuts, skins, and slaves. Sunni Ali extorted tribute from local leaders, took hostages, and arranged political alliance marriages, but he also built many dikes that enhanced irrigation and agricultural production in many regions. Trade centers, in particular, evolved into sophisticated urban centers with stone-built houses, vast public squares for regular marketplaces, and at least one mosque. A floating suburban population lived in mud and reed huts or tents around this center. Meanwhile, rural people remained entirely reliant on agriculture, albeit the prevalence of rural markets shows that there was typically a food surplus. Famine was undoubtedly uncommon throughout the Songhai Empire's early half, and there are no accounts of peasant revolts. In comparison to the more federal systems of the preceding Ghana and Mali empires, the Songhai administration was far more centralized. The ruler was an absolute monarch, but the Songhai monarchs were never completely safe on their thrones, despite having about 700 eunuchs at their court in Gao. 6 of the Songhai Empire's 9 kings were either overthrown in revolts or met violent deaths, most often at the hands of their brothers and uncles. There was an imperial council of the most senior officials, which included the finance minister, Kalisa Farma, the admiral, Hai Khoi, of the Songhai fleet, who also supervised the regional governors, the head of the army, Balama, and the minister of agriculture, if a king reigned long enough to benefit from it, Fari Monzo. Forests, wages, purchases, property, and foreigners were all overseen by ministers. The formal documentation was handled by a chancellor secretary. Many authorities with particular responsibilities, such as monitoring or inspecting the usage of official weights at commercial centers, as well as leaders of local craft guilds and tribal organizations, were present at the local level. The local tax collector, who gathered commodities for the crown to pay the army, court, and give some support for the destitute, was one official that no one could avoid, despite the fact that the wealthy had to pay him more than the poor. The dynasty title Askia or Askia, meaning ruler or possibly even usurper ruler, was first used by King Muhammad I, r. 1494 to 1528, a former Songhai army captain who had wrested the kingdom from Sunni Ali's son, Sunni Barrow. For the first time, the new king would command the Songhai Empire's largest territorial extent, cementing his position as the Songhai Empire's second most powerful monarch after Sunni Ali. One of the motivations for King Muhammad's desire to expand the Songhai Empire's interests to the southeast might have been the loss of control of a portion of West Africa's gold trade to the Portuguese. According to historian Leo Africanus, d. circa 1554, 3 important cities of Hausaland, lying between the Niger River and Lake Chad, were attacked: Gober, Katsina, and Zaria. Kano, the region's 4th largest city, was forced to pay a large tribute to the Songhai ruler. The empire spanned practically from the Senegal River in the west to what is now central Mali in the east, and the capital at Gao had a population of 100,000 people. In addition, the rich salt mines at Tagahaza in the north were part of the area. The Songhai Empire spanned virtually the entire length of the Niger River, West Africa's commerce superhighway, and the Songhai peoples were reduced to a small minority in a state that included the Mande, Fulbe, Mossi, and Tuareg. The Islamic faith, which had long been established in other Sudanese countries such as Ghana and Mali, had a tenuous life in the Songhai Empire, at least at first. King Sunni Ali was an outspoken anti-Muslim, while King Muhammad I, as his name suggests, was a convert who even performed the Hajj in Mecca, where he was given the honorary title of Caliph of the Sudan. Muhammad enforced Islamic law on his people, appointing qadis, Islamic magistrates or judges, as heads of justice in Timbuktu, Djenne, and other cities, and enlisting the help of Muhammad al-Maghili, a North African, as his government counselor. The latter's writings would play a significant role in the Islamic reform movement that swept the area beginning in the 18th century. Unquestionably, a mainly Islamic urban elite arose. There arose not just a class of affluent merchants, but also a class of religious academics whose works not only investigated the ins and outs of their faith, but also covered a wide range of topics from science to history. King Muhammad may have attempted to establish Islam as the state religion, but, as in the Songhai's predecessor states in the Sudan region, Islam was largely limited to the elite and urban populations, while rural communities and the majority of the population clung to their traditional animist beliefs. Spirits were supposed to occupy specific items in the later religion, particularly stunning natural phenomena, trees, caverns, and notable natural features. The two most powerful spirits were Herek Diko and Dongo, who were tied to the Niger River and thunderstorms, respectively, which is not unexpected considering the river's role in trade and rain in West Africa's arid savanna. These spirits, as well as others, particularly those of deceased ancestors, had to be kept happy at all times, thus food and wine were offered to them, and they were honored with masked dances and rituals. Although it was more of a belief system than a formal religion, there were practicing priests, known as tirke or sorcerers, who made it their job to keep bad spirits out of village affairs. From the final quarter of the 16th century, the Songhai Empire began to decline along the boundaries, particularly in the west. This was primarily owing to a series of ineffective rulers and civil conflicts over succession rights that had plagued the empire since King Muhammad's death in 1528. The empire was virtually divided in half due to a feud between Muhammad IV Banu, r. 1586, and his brothers. Then came the fatal death blow. In 1590-1, Moroccan commander Ahmad al-Mansur al-Dahabi, died in 1603, dubbed the Golden Conqueror, sent a small force of 4,000 men equipped with muskets to attack the empire. The Songhai army had 30,000 soldiers and 10,000 cavalry, but their weapons were spears and arrows, thus the Moroccans won the fight. The empire vanished once Songhai's riches was taken. The Songhai Empire, once the biggest in West Africa, has been obliterated.